Jay Jaffe joins us each and every Wednesday at this time to talk baseball and beer with us from Fangraphs.com. You can check out Jay's work at Fangraphs and also follow him on Twitter at J_Jaffe. In fact, you can also check him out at Untapped. It's the beer app where Jay will not only offer up his tasting notes, but let you see what Jay's drinking, which is always kind of fun because he'll profile a beer at the very end of our segment here today. Good to have you back, Jay. I'll tell you, Padres right now are trying to wrap things up against the Oakland A's in the ninth inning. They're up 3-1, and they are a subject of one of your recent stories up at Fangraphs.com. And you've talked about how injuries and as you called it, an underwhelming deadline, which I completely agree, really dealt significant blows to the Padres. It's been rough. I mean, they're 15 games over 500, but you got to be careful because you don't want to suddenly fall out of playoff consideration as things are kind of developing here.
Yeah, the Padres are a strong team, but the problem is that they're playing in a division with two of the strongest teams in the National League. And right now, the pace that they're on only gets them to the wild card game. And as the visitors of the wild card game, they could very easily go one and done. The idea, the hope was for them that they would strengthen themselves at the deadline and give themselves a chance to catch not only the Dodgers but also the Giants, who are leading the division. But they were unable to land Max Scherzer, whom they were in pursuit of. Exactly how that went down, I think, is unclear. It was reported by Ken Rosenthal and others that a deal was near, but that may have been some misdirection on the part of certain parties within the structure of the deal. But they did get as far as at least agreeing on players, if not getting Scherzer to waive his no trade clause and exchanging medicals. But they did not get any other starting pitching once that fell through. They were said to pursue Jose Barrios, but they didn't come close to landing him. Ultimately, their big moves for the week, they landed Adam Frazier from the Pirates, an infielder who's got some versatility, and Daniel Hudson, a reliever from the Nationals, and what was the other one?
Those were the two big ones. I mean, when you really start to look at their deadline, they didn't do a ton like we're used to. It was really Frazier and Hudson as their two big ones, Jay.
Yeah, it was kind of underwhelming, and I think we expected to see. It was Jake Marisnick was the other one, the outfielder. It was it's a perfectly solid fourth outfielder, platoon type, defensive type, not a starter, not a big hitter. They needed to do an impact move to keep pace with the Dodgers, who traded for Scherzer and Trey Turner, as well as Danny Duffy, and the Giants, who got Chris Bryant. Those are impact moves. Those are blockbusters. The Padres, they did a lot this winter to remake that rotation, but it hasn't lived up to expectations. Only Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish are pitching well. Blake Snell has been kind of a dud.
Yep.
Dinelson Lamet has been unavailable mostly due to forearm problems. Ryan Weathers has shown some promise, but ultimately he's a 21-year-old who's getting knocked around. Chris Paddock just strained his oblique. He went on the injured list on Friday on Saturday, as did Fernando Tatis Jr. And right now they're looking at scotch taping that rotation together with openers and short and bullpen games, and that's just nowhere for a contender who's trailing in the division race to be.
If you're the Padres, when do you give a serious consideration towards just shutting Tatis down, letting him get shoulder surgery, so this is not going to get worse and worse in future years?
Well, I think right now they don't feel that he is in danger of the situation getting worse. Apparently, the shoulder has subluxed 5 times this year. It's a recurring problem, but he recovers from it pretty quickly. The tear apparently hasn't got in his labrum, has not gotten any bigger. I think we already know he's headed for off-season surgery. So long as the tear's not getting worse, I think they can play through it. But he's battling inflammation, instability, and they probably have to do more to try to stabilize the shoulder when he goes out there, and be careful of the one-handed swings. Be careful of the base running stuff. I mean, he's done it. The shoulder has subluxed in just about every way you can. He's done it fielding. He's done it base running. He's done it swinging. I mean, I don't know if there's an award for that, but he's a triple threat, and it's a problem. I don't think they're going to shut him down unless they feel that the inflammation and discomfort is insurmountable for him. And I think, he's going to probably push it as far as he can, and they're going to try to do what they can.
Max Scherzer makes his debut for the Dodgers tonight against the Astros. Stros won 3-0 yesterday. Big win for them in Los Angeles, given the circumstances, Jay, and just what the fans that were out to get the Astros. And, that's the thing, is that as great a year as it's been for the Dodgers and the acquisition, the Astros are in first place. They've got 65 wins, 31 on the road, coming off that win yesterday, which was big for them. And obviously, you blank the Dodgers in LA, it can go a long way. I'm looking forward to tonight. I think it should be so much fun. Odorizzi will be opposing him, and this is the kind of series we've been waiting for.
Yeah, it's last night's game was a good game. Lance McCullers was certainly had it together. Walker Buehler was very good. The home run broke it open late. Once the Astros got into that bullpen's been a problem for the Dodgers. I don't think Odorizzi is as good as McCullers. I think Max Scherzer, boy, he's going to have all the adrenaline in the world going. He's going to, he's going to be a different look for the Astros there. I think it's going to be a must-watch TV here. I was paying pretty close attention to it for a good chunk of last night.
I am too. And I think for the Astros, the one thing is this, they solidified their bullpen at the deadline. They didn't have a ton of other needs. So really, they were just looking to get stronger in late games. They were able to do that with a couple of trades. And you really wonder, will Houston be the team to beat in the American League heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the way that the other contenders, the Red Sox have kind of fallen back a bit. The White Sox have been, have taken their lumps. I think the Astros are right there. I think they probably should have, like everybody else, I think they probably should have gone starting pitching. Zach Greinke's had some shoulder issues. They've had some other issues, elsewhere in that rotation. But right now they're a very strong team, and other than touching up at the margins, I think that they're fine heading into the final third of the season, and they're as strong as anybody right now.
Absolutely. You wrote a couple of days ago about Joey Votto of Cincinnati and his resurgence. We haven't seen a power binge like this from Votto in years, Jay. As you've started to dive into this in your story, what would you attribute the big surge for Votto offensively?
Well, Votto made kind of a philosophical change. He decided that, he had sacrificed too much in his quest to control the strike zone, and was no longer hitting for the kind of power he needed to hit for. And so he decided to expand his zone a little bit, and that's borne strong results. He's still walking a ton, but now he's hitting for power. He came within inches of tying the record for consecutive games with the home run. But he's tweaked his mechanics, he's changed his stance a little bit, but a lot of it's just the philosophical stuff. He just doesn't have to be, quite as in control of the strike zone as he's been before. He'll take some extra cuts instead of some extra walks right now.
Back right now with Jaffe from Fangraphs.com as we continue here on Sports Talk. His Bear Pick of the Week will be coming up in just a little bit. Jay, a couple of days ago was the anniversary of the death of Thurman Munson. It's hard to believe now. I believe it's 32 years since we lost the Yankee captain. I still remember where I was coming up from school that day, watching it on TV. I'm sure you probably remember as well, like so many others. He was my first favorite player as a kid. I thought that, Thurman Munson was the coolest Yankee. I loved whether it was the baseball cards and the full catcher's gear, the mustache, just the leadership. He was the kind of player that so many kids emulated. And when we lost him young, it really hurt a lot of things, including his Hall of Fame chances. We've discussed Thurman many times in the past, and I know it's a tough one because, like a lot of people, I'd love to see Munson eventually get into Cooperstown because his life was cut short along with his career. But based on the metrics and the numbers and jaws, it's going to be a tough test, isn't it?
Yeah, Munson fares pretty well for a guy who died at age 31. He had already checked a lot of boxes. He'd been on 2 world champions. He'd been an MVP. He'd been a Rookie of the Year. award winner. He'd been a Gold Glove winner. By Jaws, he is above the Hall of Fame standard for peak wins above replacement. He's 8th all time in that category. Everybody else in the top 10, except for Joe Mauer, who's not yet eligible, and Buster Posey, who's still active, are in the Hall of Fame. He's pretty much right between Carlton Fisk and Mickey Cochran. I mean, all that's really missing from his career is kind of the back end. Sorry, 30. He was 32, not 31 when he died. He was fading as a hitter, but he was still, pretty good at getting on base. He was still a pretty decent defender. We're just missing, kind of the playing out of the string, and it's a shame that the Hall of Fame voters at the time and since have overlooked him. He was on the 2020 Modern Baseball Era Committee ballot, but Ted Simmons got elected from that. Simmons obviously had the benefit of a longer career, but Simmons was never an MVP. Simmons was never a world champion. You can compare the two, and they're very different types of candidates. But I think that you can look at Thurman Munson and see a lot in common with other Hall of Fame catchers and believe he could be in. But he couldn't get the time of day on that ballot. I hope he gets another shot.
I do too, and I like Ted Simmons, but again, I think that's a great example of longevity for his career, because if you look at Ted Simmons at age 32 and compare him to Thurman Munson at age 32, do they compare favorably?
Yeah, Simmons had moved off of catcher. I'm not sure if he was at 32 or if it was a little bit later, but he had some misadventures at third base and DH, and that kind of actually set him back in terms of his quest to become a Hall of Famer. Age 31, actually, when for his first year in Milwaukee was the disastrous one. He was just not very good, it's taken a long time. He fell off the ballot his first time on with the writers, and it took forever for him to get on an era committee ballot. And it's kind of a victory for the process that he is the first one to go one and done and then gain election.
Speaking of Hall of Fame, that's a subject you're going to be talking about on Fangraphs here in the days to come, but going after the Negro League ballot, which I think would be pretty interesting for our listeners.
Yeah, so the Hall of Fame last year postponed the two era committee ballots, the early baseball era committee ballot and the Golden Days era committee ballot. The early baseball one is for candidates who made their marks before 1950. And this is the first time that group has been considered since 2006, the 2016 ballot. At that point, Negro Leagues candidates were not considered to be eligible for the process. In the Hall's view, the books were closed on them after the 2006 special election, where 17 candidates were chosen at once. With the decision by Major League Baseball to recognize 7 separate Negro Leagues between 1920 and 1948 as major leagues, that kind of brings this to the fore, and this is going to be the first time that those candidates even have a chance to get back on the ballot. Now, I'm writing about, the ballot hasn't been finalized yet. My concern is that, they're just going to look at the sliding of Buck O'Neil in that 2006 group, put him on there, elect it, and be done with it. And my argument is that no, they need to look deeper. Not that O'Neil is not a very good, if non-traditional candidate, because his career spans so many different phases. But there are Negro Leagues experts who know a hell of a lot more about the stuff than I do, who feel that there are players who've been unjustly overlooked, and people who've devoted themselves to this as much as I have with my Cooperstown Casebook and my Jaws, who have similarly strong points of view about overlooked candidates.
Let's wrap it up. Beer pick of the week, Jay. What would you like to profile this week?
Okay, this was from a big batch of stuff that I got from Single Cut a couple of weeks ago. This is called their Psychedelic Double Dry Hop Imperial IPA. I don't have a can remaining. Let me see if I could turn this around and give you a shot of the screen. Can you see that there?
I still see Yankee Stadium, which looks beautiful.
Oh no,
by the way.
It's not. I can't get it to work with the background, unfortunately. Here,
worries.
It's a very colorful psychedelic design. Anyway, this is an Imperial IPA with New Zealand hops. Comes in at what, 7.7% ABV. I got pineapple, grapefruit, and orange flavorings out of it. I thought it was a very good example of a New England IPA. Maybe not totally distinct from some of their other offerings, but still a very drinkable and enjoyable beer.
Have you ever had New Zealand hops before? Or was it your first time?
Oh
for an
yeah,
IPA?
no, there's New Zealand hops are all over the place. I don't know all the names of them, but some of them are kind of experimental. But Motueka is one that comes to mind. They're making their way as as brewers go a little bit further afield to try to distinguish their various offerings. And New Zealand, like the Pacific Northwest, New Zealand is a real hotbed for hops.
I know for you, your beer tastes change with the weather and the way things go, but this time of year, is IPA for you still number one on the list?
I'm drinking a lot more Pilsners and lagers right now, kind of light, a little bit lighter beers, just as, they're sessionable. Sometimes it's if it's like an afternoon beer, when I get the luxury of having a beer on the weekend or something like that, I can only take so much of the IPA stuff. My wife is pretty much exclusively on the IPA tip though. So that's most of what we buy. And then I'll have to buy like a 4-pack or a 6-pack of something else and kind of rotate it into my mix. If I'm having more than one or something.
I hear you. Hey, listen, great stuff as always, Jay. Enjoyed the conversation. We'll look forward to having you back next week.
All right, great. Thanks a lot, Steve.